the unlikely guardian. When the junior clerk became a queen, prepare for a jaw-dropping transformation. What if the person you least expect holds a secret that will turn their world and yours upside down? This is a story of power, prejudice, and a stunning revelation that will leave you breathless. Before we dive in, do you believe first impressions are always true? Let us know in the comments below. And please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable tales. Are you seriously inviting her? Melanie Curtis crossed her arms, looking at Nicholas Harrow with that smile he knew too well. Don't tell me you're turning charitable. Nicholas didn't even look up from his documents. Eliza Green, his junior clerk, was organizing files near his desk, pretending not to listen. It's the firm's annual gala, he replied coldly. All employees are invited. All important employees, Melanie corrected, raising her voice just enough for Eliza to hear. Or is your clerk going to understand what we adults talk about? The other executives chuckled. Eliza gripped the papers in her hands, but remained silent. Melanie's right, interjected Gregory Lorne, one of the senior partners. People of our class don't mix with, well, you know. Nicholas finally looked up for a second. His eyes met Eliza's. She looked at him without pleading, without hope, only with that silent dignity he had never understood. Eliza, he said, his voice harsher than he intended, you are cordially invited to the gala this Saturday. I hope you know how to behave. The silence grew heavy. She carefully placed the files on the desk as if they were made of glass. Thank you, Mr. Harrow, she replied emotionlessly. I will consider your invitation. Melanie let out a laugh. Consider? Do you have something better to do on a Saturday night? Eliza turned to her. Her dark eyes sparkled for an instant. I always have options, Miss Curtis. It's just that some aren't worth my time. Melanie's smile froze. The executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Well, Nicholas murmured, clearing his throat. That's settled. Then Eliza gathered her things without haste. When she reached the door, she paused. One question, Mr. Harrow. Does this invitation come with any particular intention? Nicholas felt his throat tighten. The others awaited his response. Just, we want everyone to have a good time, he lied. Eliza nodded slowly. I understand. Have a good afternoon. The door closed softly behind her. Melanie burst into laughter. My God, did you see her? Like an offended queen. It's going to be fun. Gregory added, watching her try to fit in with us. Nicholas said nothing. He stared at the door where Eliza had exited with a strange feeling in his chest he couldn't identify. A sister's wisdom. That night, Eliza arrived at her small apartment completely exhausted. Her younger sister Natalie was studying at the dining table. How was your day? Natalie asked without looking up from her books. Eliza collapsed onto the sofa. I was invited to the company gala. Natalie raised her eyebrows. And is that good or bad? Bad. Very bad. Why? Eliza closed her eyes. She could still hear Melanie's laughter, see the mocking glances of the executives. Because they didn't invite me to include me, Natalie. They invited me to humiliate me. Her sister put down her pencil and approached the sofa. Eliza, look at me. Eliza opened her eyes. Natalie had that serious expression she used when she wanted to give important advice. What do you want to do? Stay home, pretend I'm sick. Is that what you really want? Eliza sighed. No, I want to go and prove them wrong about me, but I'm afraid of making a fool of myself. Natalie sat beside her. Sister, you've worked 3 years at that firm. You've seen how they behave, how they talk, how they move in their world. Do you think you can't do the same? They were born into that world. I wasn't. But you're smarter than all of them put together. Natalie took her hand. And you have something they'll never have. What? Real class? Not the kind you buy with money, but the kind you carry in your soul. Eliza felt her eyes well up with tears. What if I'm wrong? What if I only confirm what they already think of me? Natalie squeezed her hand. Then you'll be wrong with your head held high. But Eliza, you've always been bigger than that place. It's time for them to realize it. Eliza remained silent, looking out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Nicholas and Melanie were in their world of luxury, sure that she wouldn't dare to show up. Maybe it was time to surprise them. The grand entrance. On Saturday night, the ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel buzzed with elegant conversations and rehearsed laughter. Nicholas adjusted his tie for the 10th time, glancing towards the entrance every few minutes, waiting for someone. Melanie appeared beside him, radiant in a golden dress that had cost more than Eliza's monthly salary. "Just checking that everything's in order," he lied, taking a sip of whiskey. "Relax, darling. Your little clerk surely stayed home watching soap operas." Melanie laughed. It's obvious she wasn't going to come. Gregory approached with two other executives, all with drinks in hand. "Still waiting for the show?" he asked sarcastically. "I bet she doesn't even have a decent dress. Or maybe she's coming in her office uniform." Another added, provoking laughter. Nicholas forced a smile, but something in his stomach twisted. A part of him hoped Eliza wouldn't come, to avoid the humiliation they had all planned. Another part wanted to see what would happen if she dared. "Ladies and gentlemen," the master of ceremonies announced, "dinner is served." The guests began to move towards the main dining room. Nicholas was walking alongside Melanie when the murmur of conversations abruptly ceased. He turned towards the entrance and felt the air leave his lungs. Eliza stood in the doorway, completely motionless. She wore a classic red dress, simple but perfectly cut, that enhanced her figure without exaggeration. Her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore no flashy jewelry, only small earrings that sparkled discreetly. Her eyes calmly swept the room, as if she owned the place. Silence stretched for seconds that felt eternal. Some guests looked at her with curiosity, others with poorly disguised surprise. Eliza began to walk. Her steps were confident, measured. She didn't look at the floor or seem nervous. She moved as if she had been born in ballrooms like this. "My God!" someone whispered behind Nicholas. "Who is that woman?" Melanie had paled, her hand clinging to Nicholas's arm. She whispered, "It's impossible. How can she look like that?" Eliza approached the main group. When she stood before Nicholas, she gave a slight nod. "Good evening, Mr. Harrow. Thank you for the invitation." Her voice sounded serene, polite, none of the timidity she displayed in the office. "Eliza?" Nicholas could barely articulate her name. "You look different," she smiled, and that smile completely transformed her face. "Different? I just put on a dress, Mr. Harrow. Nothing more." Gregory coughed uncomfortably. "Yes. Well, what a surprise to see you here." "Surprise?" Eliza looked directly at him. "You didn't expect me to come, Mr. Lorne?" No, of course not. I mean—" Melanie interrupted, regaining her composure. "Gregory means we're delighted to have you here, although I must say that dress looks interesting. Did you buy it especially for the occasion?" The venom in her voice was evident, but Eliza didn't flinch. "Actually, I've had it for years. Sometimes simple things are the most elegant, don't you think?" Melanie narrowed her eyes. Eliza had just politely told her that her golden dress was vulgar. "Of course," Melanie replied with a forced smile. "Although, I suppose for someone in your position, it must be difficult to know exactly what to wear to these events." "You're right." Eliza nodded. "Fortunately, elegance isn't bought with money. You either have it or you don't." A murmur went through the group. Several guests had approached to listen to the conversation. Eliza had responded to Melanie's attack without raising her voice, without losing her smile, but her message had been clear. Nicholas watched the scene as if hypnotized. This was not the shy, silent Eliza from the office. This woman had a presence that filled the space, a confidence that didn't need to shout to be noticed. "Eliza," a voice behind her said. Everyone turned. An older man, elegantly dressed, approached with a genuine smile. "Mr. Dubosc." Eliza lit up. "What a surprise to see you here, my dear Eliza." The man kissed her on both cheeks. "When I saw your name on the guest list, I couldn't believe it. You work with these gentlemen?" Nicholas frowned. Pierre Dubosc was one of Europe's most important investors, an occasional client of the firm. "I'm Mr. Harrow's assistant," Eliza replied naturally. "Assistant?" Dubosc looked at Nicholas in surprise. "Do you know who this young woman is, Nicholas?" Nicholas shook his head, feeling increasingly confused. "Eliza was the coordinator of the literacy program we funded in Paris 3 years ago. Her project helped over 1,000 immigrant families. An extraordinary woman." The group fell into complete silence. Eliza just smiled modestly. "It was an honor to work on that project, Mr. Dubosc." "And she spoke perfect French," the man continued. "Eliza, you must tell me what you're doing now. Are you still working on social programs?" Melanie looked like she had seen a ghost. Gregory had stopped smiling. Nicholas realized that he knew absolutely nothing about the woman who had been his assistant for 3 years. Eliza Green had just changed all the rules of the game, and the night was just beginning. What do you think will happen next? How will Eliza's past redefine her present? Share your predictions in the comments. And if you're enjoying this thrilling story, smash that like button and subscribe for more amazing content. A force of nature. Dinner passed in a tense atmosphere that only Eliza seemed not to notice. Melanie had managed to strategically seat herself near her, ready to attack at the opportune moment. "Eliza, darling," Melanie began, deliberately refined as she cut her salmon. "It must be fascinating to work with such sophisticated people after coming from such a different environment." Eliza chewed calmly before replying, "Are you referring to working with wealthy people after working with poor people?" The direct question made several diners stop their forks midair. "Well, I wouldn't have put it in such crude terms," Melanie laughed nervously. "Why not? Poverty isn't a contagious disease, Miss Curtis, and wealth isn't a guarantee of sophistication." Gregory coughed. "Surely you've had to adapt a lot to work at our firm." "On the contrary," Eliza smiled. "I've discovered that people are basically the same, no matter how much money they have. Everyone wants to be heard, everyone needs respect, everyone makes mistakes." "What a picturesque perspective," Melanie murmured. "Though I suppose it's easy to philosophize when others are paying the bills." This time, Eliza didn't answer immediately. She took a sip of wine and looked at Melanie with genuine curiosity. "Have you ever worked, Miss Curtis?" "Of course I've worked," Melanie straightened up. "I supervise my family's investments. I coordinate charity events." "I mean, worked for a paycheck," Eliza clarified softly. "Waking up every morning knowing that if you don't, there's no money for rent." The silence became uncomfortable. Eliza continued in a soft voice. "I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that every perspective is valid. You see the world from your reality, I from mine." At that moment, a man approached the table. He carried a professional camera hanging from his neck. "Excuse the interruption. I'm Marcus Grant from the Global Times. Could I speak with you for a moment, Miss Green?" Everyone turned to Eliza, surprised. "With me?" Eliza seemed genuinely confused. "Are you Eliza Green, the coordinator of the Books Without Borders project in Paris?" Eliza nodded slowly. "Perfect. I'm writing an article about successful social inclusion programs. Your project appeared in my research as one of the most effective of the past decade." Melanie squeezed her glass so hard that her knuckles turned white. "Mr. Grant," she interrupted, "I believe you're interrupting a private dinner." "No problem." Eliza rose gracefully. "We can talk right here if the others don't mind." Grant turned on a small recorder. "Tell me about the Paris project. How did you get families from 15 different nationalities to participate in a literacy program?" Eliza visibly relaxed. For the first time that night, she seemed completely in her element. The key was to understand that education isn't a favor we do for others, it's a right we give back to them. Many of those families had professionals, artists, intellectuals who had lost their degrees when they migrated. "Can you give me a specific example?" "There was a man, Amara, who had been a literature professor in Senegal. In Paris, he sold flowers in the metro. When he discovered he could teach French to other immigrants using African texts that he himself translated, he recovered not only a dignified job, but his identity." Grant nodded, taking notes quickly. "And the language aspect? I understand you coordinated sessions in French, Arabic, and English?" "And Spanish, and Wolof when necessary," Eliza added. "My grandmother always said that every language you learn turns you into a different person. I believe it turns you into a more complete person." "Impressive. Do you speak all those languages?" Eliza blushed slightly. "I handle the basics well. For in-depth work, I always partnered with native speakers." Grant turned to Nicholas. "Mr. Harrow, you must be very proud to have an employee of this international caliber." Nicholas cleared his throat. All eyes were on him. "Yes, of course. Eliza is very valuable to our firm." "What projects do you have her working on now?" The question landed like a bomb. Nicholas couldn't say that Eliza spent her days filing papers and serving coffee. "We are evaluating new opportunities to leverage her international experience," he lied. Grant smiled. "Excellent. The world needs more initiatives like Miss Green's. Could we take some photos?" For the next few minutes, Eliza posed for several photographs. She looked natural, comfortable, She answered questions with intelligence and humility. She spoke about her projects without sounding boastful. When Grant left, the table was in absolute silence. Eliza returned to her seat as if nothing had happened. "Well," she said, taking her drink. "Where were we?" Melanie looked at her as if she were an alien. Gregory seemed to have swallowed his tongue. Nicholas realized that he had spent 3 years working next to an extraordinary woman without even trying to get to know her. And the most disturbing thing of all was that Eliza didn't seem to notice the commotion she had caused. But her? All of this was simply normal. The night was just beginning, but the rules of the game no longer existed. What do you think Nicholas's realization will mean for Eliza and for the firm? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, The Fallout. On Monday morning, Nicholas arrived at the office 30 minutes late with a headache that threatened to split his skull. He hadn't slept well since the gala. The images of Eliza in that red dress, speaking naturally in front of the cameras, replayed in his mind like a broken record. His secretary, Carla, awaited him with a pile of messages and a strange expression. "Mr. Harrow needs to see this," she said, extending her tablet. On the screen, a YouTube video showed Eliza entering the hotel ballroom. The title read, "The Clerk Who Conquered the Elite. Her Story Will Shock You." It already had over 200,000 views. How in the world? Nicholas sank into his chair. The video went viral last night. It's on all social media. The full interview in the Global Times also came out. Nicholas played the video. The camera perfectly captured the moment Eliza entered the ballroom and the silence that followed. Then it showed fragments of her interview with Grant, where she spoke about social projects with evident passion. The comments were overwhelming. "What an incredible woman. I wish there were more people like her. Look how the rich people stare at her. They're green with envy. She really has true class. Did you see the blonde's face? Haha, pure venom." He stared at the screen, numb. Something deep inside him tightened, a blend of guilt, admiration, and something else he couldn't quite name. How had he missed it? How had he worked beside someone so exceptional and never once asked about who she really was? Nicholas's phone rang. It was Gregory. "Nicholas, did you see the disaster? We need to talk, now." 15 minutes later, the 4 main partners were gathered in the boardroom. The atmosphere was heavy. "This is a catastrophe," Gregory paced back and forth. "Our firm looks like a nest of elitists who exploit their employees." "The phone hasn't stopped ringing," added Daniel Curtis, Melanie's father and a senior partner. "Journalists, activists, even some clients asking what's going on, and all because of your brilliant idea to invite the maid." He snapped. "What were you thinking?" Nicholas clenched his fists. "Eliza is not a maid. She's our executive assistant." "Executive assistant?" Gregory let out a bitter laugh. "Since when does serving coffee make you an executive? Did you know she speaks 5 languages? That she coordinated international projects before working here?" Nicholas stood up. "Did you bother to read her resume once?" "Her resume?" Curtis looked at him with contempt. "Nicholas, we hire people like her to do the dirty work, not to give us moral lessons." At that moment, the door opened. Melanie entered like a hurricane, her eyes red and her makeup smeared. "This is a disaster," she yelled. "I'm being humiliated on all social media. There are memes of my face, Nicholas. Memes." She dramatically dropped into a chair. "My friends aren't talking to me. My stylist says I'd better change my image because mine is already burned. All because of that woman." "Melanie, calm down." Nicholas tried to touch her shoulder, but she pulled away. "Don't touch me. This is your fault. You invited her. You allowed her to humiliate us." Gregory seized the moment. "Nicholas, we have to take drastic measures. The firm's image is at stake." "What kind of measures?" "Obviously, Eliza has to go. Today." "Fire her? For what reason?" "You need a reason?" Curtis leaned back in his chair. "Find something. Late arrival. Error in documents. Whatever." "But if you fire her now," Melanie intervened, wiping her tears, "it's going to look like revenge. The media will make an even bigger scandal." Curtis smiled maliciously. "Not if we do it right. A review of her work, some conveniently discovered errors, maybe attitude problems. These things take time." Nicholas looked at these men he had considered his partners, even his friends. In their faces, he saw something he had never noticed before. Fear. Fear that someone like Eliza could expose them for who they really were. And underneath their fear was something even uglier. Resentment. Resentment that someone outside their world had dared to shine brighter than them without their permission. For the first time, Nicholas felt ashamed not just for them, but for the version of himself that had tolerated this mindset for so long. "No," he said softly. "No, we are not firing Eliza." Gregory straightened up. "Nicholas, don't be naive. This woman is destroying our reputation." "Our reputation? Or our hypocrisy?" The silence was tense. Melanie looked at him, narrowing her eyes. "Do you like that woman, Nicholas?" The question landed like a slap. Nicholas felt all eyes on him. "This has nothing to do with personal preferences." "Then prove it." Curtis leaned forward. "Prove that your loyalty is still with us." Nicholas looked out the window. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm. But inside that office, something fundamental had changed. He could no longer pretend he didn't see the cracks that had always been there. He realized then that the comfort of his old life was built on silence, on never questioning the cruelty disguised as tradition, the arrogance disguised as professionalism. And now that he had seen it, truly seen it, he couldn't unsee it. His phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Harrow, I'm a journalist from Telemundo. Could we talk about Eliza Green and the working conditions at your firm?" Nicholas turned off his phone and looked at his partners. "I need time to think." "We're out of time," Gregory replied. "Either she goes, or this is going to get a lot worse." As he left the boardroom, Nicholas couldn't help but wonder how he had gotten there. A week ago, his life was predictable, comfortable. Now he felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, and someone had just lit the fuse of a bomb. The problem was, he no longer knew if he wanted to put out the fuse or simply jump. The fear of change had always paralyzed him. But now, as he stood on the brink of losing everything, he realized that maybe some things needed to burn for something better to rise. A necessary apology. 2 weeks after the restaurant disaster, Nicholas tried to maintain normalcy, but the fissures were evident everywhere. Eliza continued working as if nothing had happened. But now the other employees looked at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity that hadn't existed before. He noticed how they paused their conversations when she walked by, how their gazes lingered with admiration they'd never shown before. Even in silence, Eliza was rewriting her place in the firm, and no one could ignore it. The acid test came on a Thursday night. The partners had organized a dinner with potential Japanese investors at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Melanie insisted on accompanying Nicholas as she always did for important meetings. "You need to project stability," she had told him while getting ready in her apartment. "After all this scandal, clients need to see that you're still the same." But Nicholas no longer felt the same. And that night, things spiraled completely out of control. It all began when they arrived at the restaurant. The Japanese investors were already waiting along with Gregory and Daniel. The introductions were cordial, professional. Nicholas thought that perhaps the night would pass without incident. He was wrong. Mid-dinner, as they discussed the details of a possible merger with an Asian firm, one of the Japanese casually mentioned having seen Eliza's video. "Very impressive, your employee, Mr. Harrow. In Japan, we highly value people who combine humility with excellence." Melanie put down her glass with more force than necessary. "Well, you know how these things are on social media. Everything gets greatly exaggerated." The Japanese man looked at her with polite curiosity. "Exaggerated? But Miss Green's achievements are documented. Her project in Paris was recognized by UNESCO." Daniel coughed uncomfortably. "Mr. Yamamoto, I believe the conversation is straying from the important topics." "On the contrary," another investor intervened. "A company that harnesses talent regardless of social origin is exactly the kind of firm we want to work with." Melanie let out a forced laugh. "Please, they talk as if she were Mother Teresa of Kolkata. She's just another employee who got lucky with the cameras." The silence that followed was chilling. The Japanese exchanged glances. "Pardon me," said Mr. Yamamoto in a controlled voice, "but did you just minimize your colleague's professional achievements?" "Colleague?" Melanie laughed louder. "She's an assistant. Her job is to organize files and serve coffee. I don't see why we have to pretend she's something more." Nicholas felt the blood rush to his head. "Melanie, stop." Stop what? Telling the truth? She turned to him, her eyes blazing with anger. We're all pretending that woman is some kind of saint just because she caused a scandal on social media. Melanie, please. No. She stood up, clearly agitated. I'm sick of this. Sick of everyone treating that intruder as if she's special. You know what I think? I think she's trying to steal my place. The words echoed through Nicholas's mind like a slap. Her place? As if dignity were a limited resource. As if Eliza's rise meant Melanie's fall. The Japanese watched the scene with thinly disguised disgust. Gregory tried to intervene. Melanie, perhaps you should… What should I do? Shut up, while that woman destroys everything we've built. She turned to Nicholas. Or have you already forgotten who was with you all these years? Who supported you when you started the firm? Who has been at every event, every important meeting? Nicholas slowly stood up. Melanie, let's go, now. I'm not going anywhere. These gentlemen need to know the truth. They need to know that Eliza Green is an opportunist who is using her sob story to manipulate everyone. Yamamoto wiped his mouth with his napkin and stood up. Mr. Harrow, I believe this dinner is over for us. Mr. Yamamoto, please allow me to explain. There is nothing to explain, the Japanese man spoke coldly. In my culture, respect for employees is fundamental. What we have just witnessed tells us everything we need to know about this firm. The investors quietly withdrew, leaving the partners at a table full of tension. Melanie remained standing, breathing heavily. Perfect, she shouted. Now, because of that woman, we lost $1 million contract. Because of that woman? No, Nicholas finally exploded. Because of you, because of your spoiled princess attitude that can't stand someone else getting attention. Melanie looked at him as if he had slapped her. How dare you? How dare I? You know what, Melanie? You're right. Eliza Green is stealing something. She's stealing the illusion that we are better people because we have money. Gregory tried to calm the situation. Nicholas, we're all upset. No. Nicholas turned to him. You know what I found out this week? That Melanie has been using my name to close deals without my authorization. That she's been promising mergers and partnerships I never approved. Daniel paled. Nicholas, what are you talking about? He's talking about how he investigated me behind my back. Melanie raised her chin defiantly. Yes, I used your name. Yes, I moved some contracts. So what? Someone had to make decisions while you were distracted playing social benefactor. Playing. Nicholas looked at her with a mix of disgust and sadness. Melanie, we've been together for 3 years. I thought I knew you. You know me perfectly. You just never liked what you saw. Nicholas was silent for a moment. In that pause, something inside him broke loose. Not with violence, but with clarity. He realized their relationship had been built not on trust, but convenience. Not love, but power dynamics. And now those illusions were crumbling in public view. Then in a very calm voice he said, You're right. And that ends tonight. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Melanie screaming his name in the middle of the city's most elegant restaurant. Outside, under the light rain that had begun to fall, Nicholas realized that for the first time in years, he felt free. A new chapter begins. 3 days after the restaurant disaster, Nicholas found himself sitting in front of his computer at 5 in the morning, writing and deleting the same paragraph for the 10th time. Beside him, a cup of cold coffee and several crumpled drafts bore witness to his internal struggle. Eliza had been absent since Monday. Carla had told him she had requested a few personal days, but Nicholas suspected Gregory or Daniel had something to do with her sudden absence. The rumor in the office was that the partners were preparing a dismissal letter. The official version would be staff restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. Nicholas finished writing and reread the document once more. It was a letter addressed to the city's most important newspaper, and he knew that once he sent it, there would be no turning back. At 8 in the morning, when Gregory arrived at the office with his usual air of superiority, he found an unpleasant surprise. His assistant handed him the morning newspaper with a worried look. On the opinion page, with a photo of Nicholas Harrow, appeared an article titled, A Necessary Apology and a Pending Reflection. Gregory read the first lines and felt his blood run cold. As a founding partner of Harrow and Associates, I feel the need to publicly address an exceptional employee in society in general, to offer a long overdue apology. Eliza Green has worked at our firm for 3 years. During that time, my partners and I treated her not as the capable professional she is, but as a second-class employee whose only function was to facilitate our daily work. The scandal last week was not caused by Eliza. It was caused by our inability to recognize the talent we had in front of us. It was caused by our class arrogance, our social blindness, our comfort with a system that benefits us at the cost of keeping others in positions that do not reflect their true abilities. Gregory rushed to Nicholas's office but found it empty. His assistant explained that he had arrived early, left some documents, and had left without saying when he would return. Gregory's phone rang. It was Daniel. "Did you see the newspaper? Nicholas has gone completely crazy." "I'm reading it now. This is a disaster. He's sinking us. Do you know how many clients have called this morning asking if it's true that we discriminate against our employees?" Gregory continued reading. "Eliza Green does not need us to defend her. Her achievements speak for themselves, but we do need to defend ourselves, from the moral mediocrity that allows us to sleep soundly while we waste talent due to class prejudices. Therefore, as of today, Eliza Green will be promoted to Special Projects Coordinator with the salary and responsibilities she always should have had. I also announce my temporary retirement from the firm's daily operations to reflect on the kind of company we want to be and the kind of people we want to be." "He's crazy!" Daniel screamed through the phone. "Special Projects Coordinator? He's giving her a position that doesn't even exist." "Wait, there's more." Gregory continued reading. "To Melanie Curtis, who for years was my romantic partner and with whom I thought I would share a future, I say that love cannot be built on the basis of contempt for others. Her reaction last week showed me a side of her that I had refused to see. To my partners, I remind them that a company is not just a business. It is a reflection of our values as human beings. And to Eliza, I apologize for the 3 lost years, for not having seen what everyone else saw from day one, that you are an extraordinary woman who deserves much more than this place has given you." Gregory dropped the newspaper. His cell phone kept ringing. Daniel kept shouting through the phone, but he no longer heard him. Meanwhile, in a small downtown coffee shop, Eliza read the same article with trembling hands. Natalie sat across from her, observing every expression on her face. "What do you think?" her younger sister asked. Eliza slowly folded the newspaper. "I think it's very easy to write pretty words when you have nothing left to lose." "Do you think he's not sincere?" Eliza sighed. "I think Nicholas Harrow finally woke up. The problem is, he woke up 3 years too late." There was something achingly familiar in his words she had once longed to hear in other places, from other people. Eliza had once trusted a former mentor, a well-known advocate for women's rights, who promised to elevate her work only to later publish it under his name. That betrayal had never left her. Since then, she had built walls that Nicholas, knowingly or not, was now trying to climb. Her phone began to ring. Unknown numbers, one after another. Journalists, television producers, social organizations. Nicholas's article had turned Eliza into a symbol, whether she liked it or not. "Are you going back to work?" Natalie asked. Eliza looked out the coffee shop window. Outside, people hurried to their jobs, each carrying their own invisible struggles. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "I don't know if I want to be Nicholas Harrow's redemption project." But deep in her heart, something had changed. For the first time in 3 years, someone had truly seen her. The question was whether that was enough to build something new on the ruins of the old. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a number she recognized. It was Nicholas. Eliza stared at the screen for several seconds before deciding whether or not to answer. Finding true value. Eliza let the phone ring until it stopped. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th attempt, Natalie looked at her exasperated. "Aren't you going to answer?" "I'm not ready for that conversation." But the phone continued to ring intermittently throughout the morning. Text messages, missed calls, even an email that Eliza deleted unread. Each vibration, each ping, chipped away at the fragile quiet she had carved out for herself. She wasn't avoiding Nicholas out of anger. What she feared was hope. Hope had betrayed her before, and part of her wasn't sure she could bear it if it betrayed her again. 3 weeks later, Eliza had found some peace in her new routine. Job offers had poured in by the dozens after Nicholas's article. Some were clearly opportunistic, but others came from serious organizations that valued her real experience. She had accepted a temporary position coordinating a digital literacy program for senior citizens. It didn't pay much, but it gave her the freedom to do what truly mattered to her. Nicholas, according to what she had read in the newspapers, had kept his word. He had temporarily retired from the firm and was involved in several free legal education projects for low-income communities. Eliza had seen his photo in an article about a legal aid program in working-class neighborhoods. He looked different, thinner, less polished, as if he had exchanged his designer suit for something more real. The reunion happened by chance one Saturday afternoon at the book fair in the Historic Center. Eliza was at the booth of an independent publisher, browsing a book on educational programs in Latin America, when a familiar voice said, "Is it good?" Eliza turned around. Nicholas stood beside her, dressed in jeans and a simple shirt, carrying a bag full of books. Nicholas. Eliza. They stared at each other for a moment that felt eternal. He looked tired, but there was something different in his eyes, a tranquility she didn't remember seeing before. "How are you?" he finally asked. "Good, working on things I like." "I'm glad to hear that." Eliza closed the book and put it back on the shelf. "I read about your new projects." "Oh? What do you think?" "It's easy to be generous when you have nothing left to lose." Nicholas's smile faded. "You're right, but sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what you never really had." Eliza studied him. There was no trace of the arrogant man she had known in the office. This Nicholas seemed younger, more human. "Do you want to get coffee?" he asked. "There's a coffee shop nearby. I know the place." They walked in silence through the cobblestone streets of the historic center. The fair had filled the area with families, students, readers of all ages. Eliza observed how Nicholas naturally greeted some street vendors, how he stopped to give coins to a street musician. She noticed the way his steps matched the rhythm of the crowd now, not ahead of them, not above them. And for the first time, she wondered if his transformation wasn't just real, but maybe irreversible. "How long have you been coming here?" Eliza asked. "A few weeks since I started the legal aid program. Many of our beneficiaries live in this area." "Our beneficiaries?" Nicholas blushed slightly. "The program's beneficiaries. You know what I meant." Eliza smiled for the first time since they had met. "Yes, I know what you meant." The coffee shop was small, noisy, full of students and local artists. Very different from the elegant places where Eliza had seen Nicholas before. They sat at a table by the window. Nicholas ordered an Americano. Eliza, chamomile tea. "How are things at the firm?" Eliza asked. "Difficult. Gregory and Daniel are furious with me. We lost several important clients after the article." "Do you regret it?" Nicholas considered the question seriously. "The damage to the firm?" "Yes, there were innocent people working there who had nothing to do with all this. But writing the letter? No." "And Melanie?" "Melanie moved to Miami. Her family has businesses there. I think she needed a change of scenery after everything." Eliza nodded. She felt no satisfaction in Melanie's downfall, only a kind of sadness for how unnecessary the whole conflict had been. "Eliza," Nicholas leaned forward. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything after." "You're right." She interrupted him. "You have no right." He leaned back in his chair, accepting the blow. But he didn't flinch, and that, more than anything, disarmed her. For so long, Eliza had lived with the need to defend herself, to anticipate judgment, to build armor with her every word. But now, faced with someone who didn't push back or justify, it was both unsettling and oddly comforting. "But you can try," Eliza added softly. "You can try to be the person you say you want to be, without expecting me or anyone else to forgive you for who you were before." Nicholas looked at her with something that might have been gratitude. "You know what's the hardest part of all this?" he said. "Realizing that for 3 years, I had one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met right in front of me, and I never bothered to truly see her." Eliza took a sip of her tea. "Maybe you weren't ready to see me. Maybe I wasn't ready to be seen either." And now Eliza looked him in the eyes. There was honesty there, but also uncertainty. Nicholas Harrow was no longer the self-assured man who believed he had all the answers. "Now I think we're both learning to be different. And that's enough for today." They sat in silence, drinking their cups while outside. The fair continued its cheerful bustle. For the first time in years, Eliza felt at peace with the unanswered questions. Sometimes she thought new beginnings didn't come with fanfare. Sometimes they simply came as a quiet afternoon shared with someone who had finally learned to see you. Building a shared future. 2 months after that encounter at the fair, Eliza received an unexpected call. It was Nicholas, but his voice sounded different, less confident, more human. "Eliza, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to help me with something?" Eliza was organizing materials for her digital literacy class when she answered the phone. "Help you with what?" "The legal aid program, it's not working as I expected. People don't trust us, and I think I know why." Eliza stopped what she was doing. "I'm listening." She recognized the vulnerability in his voice. The same man who once wore certainty like armor now sounded uncertain, even hesitant. Her heart tightened. "We're still acting like we're saviors descending from our ivory towers. Could you meet with me? Just to talk? Help me understand what I'm doing wrong." Eliza looked out the window of her small temporary office. Outside, some of her older students practiced sending text messages on their new phones, laughing at their own mistakes. "Where? How about the same coffee shop as last time? Tomorrow at 3. I'll be there." The next day, Eliza arrived a few minutes early. Nicholas was already there, but he wasn't alone. 3 people accompanied him: an older woman, a young man in a work uniform, and a teenager who couldn't have been more than 16. "Eliza," Nicholas stood up when he saw her. "Let me introduce you to Doña Marisol, Eric, and Kayla. They came to tell me why our program isn't working." Eliza sat down, intrigued. Doña Marisol spoke first. "Miss Green, my grandson told me about you. He says you teach computer skills without making us feel silly." "You're not silly at all," Eliza replied. "You're just learning something new." "Exactly," Eric interjected. "But when we went to Mr. Harrow's place about my problem with my boss, they made us fill out like 10 papers and talk to us with words we didn't understand." Kayla nodded. "They scheduled appointments at 10 in the morning when my mom is working, as if we didn't know that poor people can't just miss work like that." Nicholas looked genuinely ashamed. "That's why I invited them, to talk to Eliza. She understands these things better than I do." Eliza looked at the 3 people, then at Nicholas. "Can I ask you something? What would you need for the legal aid to truly help you?" Doña Marisol brightened. "For it to be in the afternoons or on weekends, and in places we already go, like the health center or the neighborhood school, and for them to explain things to us like normal people." Eric added, "Not like we're illiterate, but not like we're lawyers either. And for them to understand that sometimes the legal problem is just one part of the real problem," Kayla said. "My mom needs a divorce, but she also needs a job and daycare for my younger siblings." Eliza nodded, taking mental notes. "What if there was someone who knew both the legal problems and the other problems? Someone who could help you connect with different services?" Doña Marisol's eyes lit up. "That would be perfect. Like how do you say it? A coordinator." Eliza smiled. "Exactly, a coordinator." Her mind raced, not just at the idea, but at what it signified. A role that validated her whole self, beyond clerical tasks and underpaid interventions. She turned to Nicholas, who had been listening in silence. "What do you think?" "I think I need a coordinator," he replied without hesitation. "Someone who understands both the legal and the human side." Eliza felt a tingle in her stomach. It wasn't the first time she'd been offered a job, but this time it felt different. This time the offer felt like recognition, not pity or image, but genuine belief in her ability and insight. "Are you offering me a job? I'm asking you to teach me how to do this right. The job is yours if you want it, but more than that, I'm asking you to be my partner." Partner? That word hung between them like a bridge. No hierarchy, no charity, only collaboration. The program needs someone to make important decisions, someone who understands the people we want to help. "I can be the lawyer, but you would be the director." Eliza looked at Doña Marisol, Eric, and Kayla. In their faces, she saw genuine hope, not the false gratitude she had learned to recognize in so many well-intentioned but poorly executed social programs. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." After the others left, Eliza and Nicholas remained alone in the coffee shop. "Why me?" Eliza asked. There are people with more experience in legal aid. Nicholas looked directly into her eyes. Because in 3 years of working with you, I never saw you treat anyone as if they were less than you. Not even me, when I behaved like an idiot. Eliza felt something stir in her chest. She had heard compliments before, some shallow, others manipulative, but this one landed differently. It wasn't flattery. It was truth. Raw and rare. Nicholas, she began, I know I have no right to ask you to trust me after everything that happened, but I believe that together we could do something truly good, something that matters. Eliza was silent for a moment, looking at her hands. You know what's the hardest part of all this? What? That for the first time in my life, someone is seeing me exactly as I am, without projecting onto me what they need me to be, without trying to save me or use me to feel better about themselves. Nicholas extended his hand across the table, not touching hers, just offering it. When someone finally truly sees you, you no longer have to prove anything else. Eliza looked at his hand and after a moment placed hers on top. Okay, she said softly, let's try. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was something much more real, and for that very reason, much more valuable. It was an honest beginning, a legacy of respect. A year later, Eliza arrived at the office early, as she always did. It was no longer the small borrowed room where the program had begun, but its own space on the first floor of a building in the historic center. The walls were filled with photos, graduations from digital literacy courses, families reunited after solving legal problems, children in student scholarship programs. The program had grown beyond what anyone had imagined. It was no longer just legal aid, but a comprehensive center offering everything from computer classes to entrepreneurship workshops. Eliza had insisted that everything be free and that the hours adapt to people's real needs. She had fought for those hours, negotiated with sponsors, argued for flexibility. Every inch of this space reflected a hard-won battle she had quietly led. Nicholas arrived half an hour later, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of sweet bread from Doña Marta's stall, the woman who sold on the corner and had now resolved her pension problems thanks to the program. Good morning, Director, he said with a smile, placing one of the coffees on Eliza's desk. Good morning, People's Lawyer, she replied without looking up from the files she was reviewing. It was their morning routine. Nicholas brought the coffee. Eliza organized the day. They had developed a working dynamic that worked perfectly, because neither of them tried to be someone they weren't. How are this week's cases going? Nicholas asked, sitting in the chair opposite Eliza's desk. Doña Marisol will finally receive her full pension. Eric got paid the overtime he was owed. And Kayla, Eliza smiled. Kayla decided to study law. Seriously? We got her a full scholarship at the public university. She says she wants to be like us when she grows up. Nicholas laughed. Like us? Do you remember when we were boss and employee? Eliza looked at him over the papers. I remember when you thought you were my boss. The door opened, and Natalie entered. She now worked part-time in the program while finishing her social work studies. Eliza, the magazine journalist is here. Should I let him in? Since the program had begun to receive national recognition, the media hadn't left them alone. They had rejected most interviews, but this one was for a serious educational magazine. Let him in. The journalist was young, enthusiastic. For an hour, he asked them questions about methods, funding, future plans. But at the end, as always, he got to the personal questions. You two have an interesting story, he said. From conflict in the company to partners in this project, how would you describe your relationship now? Eliza and Nicholas looked at each other. It was the question that always came up and that they never knew how to answer. We are colleagues, Eliza finally said. Friends, Nicholas added. People who learn to work together, Eliza continued. And personally, the journalist insisted. There are rumors that... Personally, Nicholas interrupted firmly. We are 2 people who decided that the work we do is more important than the rumors people want to invent about us. After the journalist left, Eliza and Nicholas organized the papers in silence. Does it bother you? Nicholas asked. That they always ask about this? Eliza shrugged. At first, yes. But I'm used to it now. People always need to romanticize things to understand them. What if it were true? Nicholas asked softly. What if there was something more between us? Eliza stopped writing and looked at him. Is there? Nicholas seriously considered the question. There's respect, there's admiration, there's affection. Is that enough to call it love? I don't know, Eliza replied honestly, but I know it's real, and I know it's ours, no matter what others call it. Nicholas nodded. I like our life just the way it is. Me too. It was true. They saw each other almost every day. They shared meals, laughed at private jokes, supported each other in difficult moments. Nicholas had been there when Eliza got the flu. Eliza had been there when Nicholas received the news that his father had died. They didn't live together. They had no marriage plans. They didn't appear in romantic photos on social media. But they had something that many official couples never achieved. They saw each other completely. They respected each other deeply. And they had built something important together. The world remained competitive, elitist, unequal. But within their small space, they had created something different. They weren't trying to change the whole world. They were just living more honestly within it. Their revolution was quiet, built not on speeches, but on consistency, on dignity, on showing up. And at the end of the day, when they closed the office and walked together toward the metro station, Eliza knew she had found something she had never sought, but had always needed. Someone who saw her exactly as she was. And that, she decided, was enough. So the story has come to an end, quietly, honestly. And now, dear friends, you're still here with us, aren't you? If you've stayed all the way through, then something in this journey has touched your heart in its own quiet, powerful way. And maybe that's what this story is really about. Not just Eliza and Nicholas, but about all of us. About being seen. About choosing dignity over ego. About knowing that even when things fall apart, something beautiful can still begin. Eliza didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She chose to rescue herself. And Nicholas? He learned that true power isn't about control or status, but about recognizing value in others and in yourself. As the Stoics would say, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Nicholas, by stepping away from his firm and his ego, showed that transformation isn't weakness, it's courage. And maybe that's a message for us too. Life won't always give us loud answers or grand resolutions. Sometimes it just hands us a second chance, wrapped quietly in a conversation, a rainy afternoon, or a chance to say, I see you. So if you felt something today, if Eliza's strength or Nicholas's redemption made you stop and think, then maybe it's time we ask ourselves, who are we when no one is watching? And what kind of legacy are we quietly building each day? If this story resonated with you even a little, give it a like. It tells us you're out there. Share it with someone who needs this message today. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next story that just might shift something in you. We're here to tell real stories. About growth, about healing, about becoming.